falls in life. We live and learn from our mistakes. The deepest cuts are healed by faith. Now I believe there comes a time when everything just falls in line. We live and learn from our mistakes. The deepest cuts are healed by faith. Now I believe there comes a time when everything just falls in line. We live and learn from our mistakes. The deepest cuts are healed by faith. Now I believe. Oh, better. There comes a time when everything just falls in line. Oh, better. Now I believe there comes a time when everything just falls in line. We live and learn from our mistakes. The deepest cuts are healed by faith.
Jane, we ready to rock?
We're ready.
Yay! Welcome to ReneMarie's Stroke of Luck special broadcast. It is so exciting that we have everybody coming together to share what we're doing moving forward in the stroke and aphasia world and keeping the conversation alive. And this is really only the beginning of our mission to work together and to keep the conversation going. That's how you resolve things. It's not about complaining or talking about things, and it's about what has happened in the past and what are we going to do to fix it, to move forward. And we have the greatest panelists in the world here today. And I'm not going to introduce them individually. I will let them do that themselves. But I do want to give gratitude first. And then Mark Moore is going to begin the show with a small prayer. So first I want to thank Judy, because without Judy, none of this would happen on a regular basis. But to pull together a show like this, we had 30 participants, and I know that some of them couldn't navigate today, but she reached out to like 60 or 70 panelists, guests. So Judy, without you, none of this could happen. Thank you so much for everything,
You're quite welcome. It's my pleasure.
Yes,
Thank you, Judy.
Let's all clap. And then I want to give gratitude to Jean. Where's Jean Marie? I don't see Jean Marie.
Right here, up here, next to you.
Jean Marie came on the show. Her mom suffered a stroke, and she was honoring her by creating an organization. What's the name of the organization again, Jean?
Pathways Stroke Foundation.
Pathways to Stroke Foundation. And she was so energetic. Like, we were just sitting, three of us in the studio, and we're like, yeah, right. Like,
Yeah,
we just got each other. We're like, yeah. Don't you get it? Like, what? Like, let's do a show. Let's do it. We could. What can we do moving forward? What? And that was the evolution to this program. So thank you, Jean Marie, for inspiring us to do it. And it always takes somebody lighting that fire under you, or maybe we all had the fire and we sparked, together. Right. So thank you so much for helping me and Judy and the organization partnering with our organization. We love you. Thank you so
Well,
much.
strength in numbers for all of us. Our voices all together could be louder than just one. And it made sense that we all collectively could bring this conversation continuing moving forward so that we could help others and raise awareness.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. I agree. And then we have to really give gratitude to Jason and Dr. Beculus, because when we had this vision, we reached out to Jason and Dr. Beculus, and Jason really does the legwork and the behind the scenes work to schedule stuff. And we love that. It's the same with Judy and myself. You know, Judy does. I got to go out and I got to do the forefront of the work, but Judy on the background, I could not do without her. So she does a great job. So thank you to Dr. Beculus and Jason for hearing us, and we actually were going to do it live in a conference room at the hospital. Let's see, the Catholic Health Services of Long Island. Is that what the hospital's called? Let me see.
Good Samaritan Hospital.
Good Samaritan. Yes, Good Samaritan. You had scheduled it, and then we postponed it, and then coronavirus came along, and it was. But thank you so much to both of you. You
Absolutely.
guys.
This is so important to us, and you know, from myself running the support group that we have at Good Samaritan Hospital. You know, I see it every month, and coronavirus. You know, we're doing Zoom as well for our support group. So, you know, we do what we can. So thank you for everything that you're doing.
Yes, thank you so much. Thank you, Dr. Beculus.
Thank you.
You're very welcome. You're very welcome. So we're going to start. I want to thank Nicole and Veronica. Veronica, they're actually in Australia. And the blessing is, I know everybody's going to love this. The blessing is Veronica just got out of the hospital, and she's on this this program. So Veronica, raise your hand. Can you hear us? Okay, that's Veronica.
Hello. Lovely to meet all of you.
Yes, and I got to thank everybody: Mark, Brenda, Michael, Dr. Mike, Dr. Jim, Stacy, Marcia, Jim, Jean Marie. I already thanked Dr. Jennifer, Venice, Barbara, Peter, Mark McEwen, our favorite host. Judy, of course, I thank Judy, Jason, Ann. Thank you so much for joining us. Andrew Rhea, he's an incredible individual. Corinne from the American Stroke Association, thank you for joining us today. Craig, thank you for taking your time. Cynthia, thank you. Who is that? Oh, that's Barbara. Hi, Barbara and Eddie. Barbara and Eddie have joined us, Dr. Beculus and Steve. So thank you all for joining us today. And thank you for Jim in the studio. I just believe you got to start with gratitude. You got to start with gratitude in your life. And we're so grateful for everybody. Mark, I'm going to allow you to take the floor and say a small entering prayer, because to bring hope to everybody, just so we can begin the show in the proper venue.
Thank you, Renee. If everyone could bow our heads. Heavenly Father, we thank you for your grace and love. Ever grateful for your presence in our lives as you govern and reign during a time in which we must be extra vigilant for our health worldwide. Sending your Son Jesus gives us hope, Father of all that you are and provide. We ask you to join in our fellowship today for enlightenment, vision, and uplifting. May it glorify you. Amen.
Thank you so much. Thank you, thank you, thank you. So, Dr. Beculus, you lead the way, if you don't mind. Oh, where is he? Oh, there he is.
Sorry about that.
That's okay. So, share with us, because you're on the cutting edge of everything, and really leading the way in the United States, I believe. I don't know about the world, because I don't follow the world, what's going on. But you do an incredible work. So tell us a little bit about what we're doing at this point and what we're doing to move forward in the stroke world.
Sure. Again, Renee, thank you for having us. I think, obviously what we're doing has to do with the immediate treatment of stroke when it happens. But, I just want to stress out that it's equally important, and you are doing it very well today at your round table. It's equally important to consider all the other components of stroke, because stroke is one of those diseases that you have what we call a continuum of care. Care starts by recognizing the symptoms, identifying the symptoms on time, finding the right resources, going to the right center, then moving to rehabilitation most times, and then transitioning into support back into the community. And so it's a continuum of care, and it involves obviously primary prevention, secondary prevention, and acute treatment. So again, what we do is a small component, and we're trying to contribute to the rest, but really kudos to you and your team and all the participants in the panel for doing all the other stuff that really make an impact in patients' lives. And joke, which is not really a joke, but what I typically say is, what we do is, we're glorified plumbers.
Keep on track with the Rethink Memory Management app.
But
get automatic memory.
What what you guys do is what really makes a difference in patients' lives. So on the interventional side, things have transitioned dramatically in the last 5 to 10 years. Stroke was a disease where you didn't have a lot of tools to treat emergently. We had TPA, the clot busting medicine that we would administer with a short window of time to do that, and we also had a lot of contraindications to giving TPA. And now we have the ability to go in through the groin, navigate our catheters and wires, remove clots mechanically, place stents, open blood vessels, repair tears, fix brain aneurysms, all through the groin or through the wrist within a few minutes. So these short procedures that are minimally invasive obviously can change somebody's life. The sooner you get an intervention, as you know, the kind of the message is time is brain. So the sooner you intervene, the better the chances of a successful outcome. And over the years, even since we started doing these procedures, and these procedures have been proven to be effective with multiple clinical trials, even since then, I've seen a dramatic increase in the eligibility of patients. So now we've moved from only treating very large blood vessels that are blocked into smaller and smaller vessels, and now a lot more patients can benefit. It's a really dramatic effect that these interventions have on patients. So when we see it, that somebody's not moving, cannot talk, and we remove these blood clots, and all of a sudden they start talking on the table, or they start moving the side that wasn't moving, and obviously that's very rewarding for the whole team to see these folks come in with a devastating deficit that would result, without any intervention, would result in either permanent disability, sometimes death, sometimes need for open brain surgery to remove the bone to allow the brain to swell in the most serious cases. And obviously, most of these folks would end up in a nursing home. Now we have the ability to reverse the symptoms, get them back into normal life. And it's a procedure that applies to younger and older patients alike, and the in-between. And obviously, we should never forget that although stroke is rare in the younger age group, and you know that very well, it's not 0%. And so you know it, through your personal experiences. And I love statistics, but at the end of the day, if it's you, it's 100%. So we should keep our eyes open at all age groups. And so, kind of on the interventional side, I think things are very exciting every day, and we have new devices, new catheters, new tools to do what we do effectively, to do it faster, to do it more precisely, and to do it for more patients. And so, in a comprehensive stroke center like the Stroke and Brain Aneurysm Center of Long Island, we do that every day, multiple times a day. We'll be doing it today, and hopefully we'll keep helping people. But really, I cannot stress enough how important what you guys do is, because without awareness, people will not come to us on time. So what we do is not going to be effective. And also, without appropriate rehabilitation, education, community reintegration, these patients will not always feel that they can go back to a regular life. Survivor's guilt is a true problem. A lot of stroke patients are worried to go out of their house in case this happens again, even if they've had a full recovery. And so supporting these people is very important. Again, thank you. Good luck on your round table today.
Thank you. Thank you. I got to tell you though, on in my world, and I just realized this a few years ago, I was afraid to complete anything because I thought it was going to be the end. If I finished anything, like, you know, cleaning a room, you didn't want to finish it, or going
Right.
to work. You worked, but I didn't want to be like completely successful because I was afraid. The end always feared me in the back of my mind. And it
Right.
wasn't until I became aware of that that I was able to have the tools to say, no, just move forward. Nothing's gonna happen. Nothing's gonna happen. So that's so true, Dr. Beculus. That's so true. Thank you for your inspiration and
Thank-
for partnering with us and for being on our show. Jason, thank you so much. So Jason, I know you do a recovery. Corinne, I'm going to let you talk next because I think you have to leave at 9:30, is it?
I have to leave by 10.
Oh, okay. So Jason, talk to us about like the after effects. And I gotta mention something else. You know, Dr. Beculus and Jason are gonna be doing someone today, or doing someone. They're gonna be operating on or doing a procedure on someone that's suffering a stroke or possibly suffering a stroke. I mean, let's just take that in for 1 second. Like, someone's life right now is on the line because of a stroke. I mean, that's why I always say that God left me with my arm a little bit tight. So I always remember where I came from. I don't go back to the normal way of life because I want to be sure that I'm always remembering that there's somebody right at this moment that could be suffering a stroke or having a life-changing experience. So Jason, talk to us about the hope that you bring to everybody after a stroke.
Thank you. So, you know, you just mentioned the new normal. You know, now we hear that far too often with the pandemic, but it's something in the support group that we talk about a lot. You know, some patients make full recoveries and full physical recoveries, and that's fantastic. But a lot of times there's some residual mental problems. And Dr. Beculus touched on it really well himself. Sometimes it's just the fear of, you know, can it happen again? And in younger patients, we see that very often because we don't have a reason why they had a stroke. They're cryptogenic strokes, meaning that, you know, in older patients, it could be a heart issue, it could be a carotid disease. And these are all things that we can fix preemptively. But when a patient has a stroke and there's no definitive reason why, there's always that fear of, you know, where did it come from? Can it happen again? Can I be with my children and it can happen again? I mean, we had a 40-year-old woman who was sitting on her couch with her husband, just put her kids to bed. They went to watch some TV together and had a stroke. And he recognized the signs and symptoms, called 911. And then what we see in support group is now she has the fear of, you know, I could have been by myself. The kids could have been in the bathtub. You know, and then her spouse has that fear of, I don't want to leave her alone. The same thing. Can this happen? Depression is a big issue afterwards. So what we do in support group is we really try to work on getting people resources that they need. Depression, like I said, is one of the big things that we deal with. Depression because I'm not who I used to be. Depression because, you know, the family members are going through seeing their loved ones suffer. Men are very stubborn. So when a male has a stroke, it tends to be a little bit more of a difficult journey on the family, unfortunately. So that's why we encourage caregivers to participate, even if the patients themselves, choose not to for whatever reason. Maybe they're not there yet. They have. It's almost like a vain thing. You know, they don't want to be seen. They don't want to talk about it. And guys, we see have that happen a lot. But we encourage caregivers to come. They can get resources. They can get some support. It's really talking to other people that have went through it or are going through it. So you know you're not alone. But like you said, Renee, it's more about trying to accept your new normal. And we had one gentleman who wanted to drive. He had a classic car. He just retired. He had a stroke and he can't drive right now. And that was his thing. I wanted to retire, drive down, get a cup of coffee. And that was always about, he can't drive now. So I said, well, you have children that are of age that can drive. Why don't you make it a new thing and have them drive you and kind of turn what you thought you were going to have into something new and kind of make the best of it. And the members of the support group are really the ones that, they're there for each other. That's why people come back. They might not even need support themselves. It's pretty much just to be there for everyone. So it's so important to have a support network. We have a woman who's taking care of her mother, and she's by herself. And I told her, I was like, if you need anything, please reach out, even on the side. I mean, I've talked to so many people, a 20-minute phone call because they're having the worst day, ever they feel. They're watching their loved one or them themselves are forgetting things. And we have one patient, she's featured on some of our commercials, if anybody has seen that. She's like my gold star patient, where 1 month she would come in and she would be on a high. Everything was going well. She made some strides. And next month she had a lot of setbacks, and she kind of talked about that. And she has like a big roller coaster of a recovery, and she's still going through it. And this is, almost 4 years after the fact. So it's a continuing thing. And when we're here, and Dr. Beckwith, like he said, up front, we can do what we can do and hope for the best. But in the back is where you're really dealing with that outcome, for better or for worse.
Yeah. Yeah. And what's very interesting is, and this is something that I've learned just recently, within, the last 10 or 5 years, because my stroke happened over 30 years ago, is that the person that suffers a stroke doesn't really understand or see what's going on. So that's why it's so important for the general population and the families of stroke survivors to really engage in recovery centers and aftercare, and like you guys provide, because they need to educate themselves of how to navigate around it, right?
Absolutely.
So, yeah.
No, and we have resources on strokecarelongisland.com. It's our website. It talks about the support group, and we also have some patient. We're all about education. Education and resources. So we tried to provide them in person and virtually as much as we can.
Wow. Thank you so much, Jason. You guys are a blessing to the world. You are.
Oh, thank you. It really comes down to what you're doing, like Dr. Beckwith said. It's getting the word out there and getting, people the knowledge that they need. So thank you.
Oh, you're very welcome. So Anne, I know that it's one of your profession is to support caregivers going through things, and we both believe that it has to do with faith. You have to have faith to get through it. How do you teach someone, a family member? We were going to do what's that, the wisdom, pearls of wisdom, right? I'm sorry, that probably didn't have anything to do with it, but tell us a little bit about what you would, as a caregiver, tell a family member to support their stroke survivor or aphasia survivor. I can't hear you. Okay, now I can hear you.
Yeah.
Yep.
So it's kind of like how Judy supports you in the background so that you can do what you do, right? So that's what a family caregiver is. From my experience, I left my job for 1 year to take care of my parents and take care of their social, their medical, their financial, legal, all of that. 1 year turned into 6, and I had no idea. Like, it was this vortex that I just got pulled into. So one of the things that's really important to me is preparation. Is even if we don't know somebody or we don't have somebody in our lives at the moment, if you think about it, at some point in time, we're all going to need care, right? And we're all going to need family, and we're all going to need support. So a family caregiver isn't just somebody that just comes in and fills out the paperwork. It's the mental, it's the emotional, it's the spiritual, it's the, all of that. One of the biggest things for me was during my journey, I didn't have anybody to talk to in the middle of the night. I mean, people were sleeping, people had to get up to go to work the next day, and I would journal and journal and journal. And I really learned that journaling really is one of the most healthiest ways to process any kind of negative emotion and turn it into inspired action. For example, my dad, I had made him a promise when I was a very young girl. He was raised in an orphanage, and it wasn't pretty. And I promised him that I would never put him in a home. So here I am, an adult, and now I have to put him in a home for good reasons, right? He needs rehab. Yeah. So I'm feeling guilty. So not only do I have to proceed and with the process of getting him this rehab that he needs, that's so important to him, I have to deal with my own emotions. So I took a look and I took a step back and I looked at that guilt that I was feeling that was consuming me. And I said, is this beneficial guilt? Is this helping me? Is it helping my father? And when I realized that it was not very useful, I was able to take a step back and really channel that energy into finding and advocating and fighting for the best care that he needed. Self-care is a huge piece. You know, when we're caregivers, self-care is out the window. It doesn't even exist. So for me, I learned that self-care, yeah, it's you know, exercising, eating right, all of that, trying to do the best that you can. There's the emotional piece, but there's also a very strong emotional piece in creating boundaries around caregiving, learning how to delegate, learning how to say no, learning how to ask for help. That's, Renee, that's so hard for a caregiver, is learning how, I'm going to cry, is learning how to ask for help, because we think that we are, you know, everything, and we're alone and we have to do this by ourselves and we don't have support and we're the decision makers and we've got all of these pieces around us. But just sitting down and saying, I need help, to other family members, because if you notice, it always seems to be that one person in the family, unless you're really fortunate to have a good support system within the family. It's always that one person that takes on the whole burden of family caregiving. Yeah, so that for me was a huge learning lesson. And I took a look at this and I said, okay, what can I create from this? So we started creating lots of free resources for family caregivers, resources like safety in the home checklist, self-care checklists,
There we go. There you go.
mental, emotional, all kinds of
Good job.
resources that can help a family caregiver, because eventually we're either going to need care or we're going to give care. And that's just a fact of life. That's just the circle of life. So preparation is key. Advanced directives. I don't care how old you are, you know, once you pass that legal age to get advanced directives, your healthcare proxies, your DNRs, take a look at these things, because as you know, the medical team has mentioned, you can have a stroke at any time, at any age. And having those things in place is so important.
Yeah, yeah. Do you know that's why our motto is together we're lifting our voices and changing the face. The face is the misconception that stroke only happens to our grandparents. It happens to anybody at any age. And I'm living proof of it. And that's why I can say it with conviction, because I was 26 when I had my stroke. So there is no really there's really no age limit on a stroke. And Judy, talk about that. It could even happen to a baby.
That's right.
Right? Because we had, and we did a show one time for Judy's
It happened
run.
to an unborn baby.
Yes, yes. And we did a show. I was singing at a program for Judy's Run, and the sister came up and shared with that her brother had a stroke in utero. So it's really very important that everybody understands that you need to know the signs. That's the number one thing. That's the number one thing. Let's go to Steve. I know you guys wrote a wonderful book, Identity Theft. Talk to us about that. Can you hear me?
Yep, sorry, had to get off mute.
That's okay, because we're all just focusing on right now. It really does strip our identity. It really does strip our identity.
Yeah, and one, thanks to you, ReneMarie, and everybody else. It's wonderful to be able to gather, and apologies at now 6:38 in the morning and my first cup of coffee hasn't fully kicked in. So
where are you? Wait, share where you're located and the state you're located.
So we're in California. We live in the Bay Area. Just as I always like to say, if I golfed, it would be a good driver from Stanford Hospital, but I don't. So, you know, I'm not sure exactly where to go, but my wife, Deb, was a professor at Stanford, suffered a severe stroke. Dr. Beculus was really interested in, I'm not sure if you're still on, but some of the things you talked about. She had a cerebral dissection, which was the cause of her stroke, and they didn't really figure out what it was for quite a while. I do sometimes share the story that she had a stent put in the cerebral artery, and I almost had a heart attack because a $990,000 hospital bill got declined by insurance because it was considered experimental. Now, fortunately, we were able to get that one overturned. But what Deb found, she was just tenacious about recovery, and for 3 years really did nothing but therapy because she was just committed to get back to the person she was before her stroke, get back to teaching at Stanford. And it was when she had to give up her tenured position there after 3 years of medical leave, which was Stanford's policy, that she really had the reckoning. We say it was the beginning of her identity crisis, because all of a sudden she realized this wasn't just going to be a temporary blip in life as she knew it. She had to build a new life. And she had done a lot of work around identity in the context of her diversity work that she had done for most of her career, and really started down a path, and we did as a family start down a path of really understanding how this thinking about identity and who you are and what's important to you, and that identity is more than just the job you have or the roles you have in life. It's your values, it's what's important. And she really sort of turned her academic lens on herself and the book writing process, which, people have been talking about the need to accept help. The book writing process required tons of help that when she had written books before, she didn't need, and that in and of itself. And somebody just shared the screen. I'm not sure if that was
Jim. I think it was Jim who showing a photo of your book. Jim, are you showing a photo of identity theft?
I'm seeing a pencil.
Yeah, but I'm looking on the show, and I could see that your book is up. You could take it down now, Jim.
In any case, that really led us, and again, I don't want to take too much airtime here, but it led us to realize the importance of the emotional journey after stroke and this notion of rebuilding identity. And as much as we are huge cheerleaders for intervention that can reduce, for awareness that can help prevent stroke, we know that there are going to be a lot of people with stroke and with the aftermath of stroke. And so we founded a nonprofit called Stroke Onward, really to focus specifically on that emotional journey after stroke. And we found, and for the book, Deb interviewed 25 other stroke survivors and and we use the phrase care partner as opposed to caregiver, family care partners, professionals. And we really discovered a dearth of attention and resources to focus on this emotional journey. And as we've gotten into it now for about 1.5 years with Stroke Onward, the number of professionals who are trained to overlap between therapy type skills and the stroke world are just, you can't find them. So even when people realize they have stroke survivors who need some help on this issue, they're at a loss for who to send them to, because people just don't exist who really specialize in that. At least that's what we're finding so far. So, we really hope that over the years ahead, we can make some impact in helping people realize that recovery isn't just rehabilitation. It's really about recovering a rewarding life, and that will often have to be done in the face of disabilities that require adaptation, require a change in thinking about how, in Deb's case, she became a professor because she liked to create and share knowledge. That's what being a professor is about. So when she couldn't be the professor she trained herself to be, was there another way in the world she could create and share knowledge? And that's what led her to write a book, and that's what led us to create Stroke Onward. So wow. I'll stop there, but thank you to everyone.
Well, this is only the beginning of the conversation, Steve, and we really want to keep it going. We want to make sure that people know, like ReneMarie and Judy, that this is not ending. We're not going away. We want to fix it. And how do we fix it? And we spoke about that on the show. Like, how do we fix it? and that's what we're going to do. And we'll get into the details with the doctors in a few minutes. And we'll also, Mark, I want you to talk about in 2 seconds. I want Corinne next, but I want you to talk about, because you're really the most visible of how a stroke can impact your life. You're just a showcase of it, right? Because you had a wonderful life, being on the front end of the visuals of everybody, and then you suffered a stroke. So in a few minutes, I want you to touch on that. And also Eddie, and I'm forgetting, Eddie and Dee, I want you to talk about the fact of, in your case, insurance as well. So I just want to pinpoint that. But until we get, and Andrew, I want you to talk about the details as well, because you were in that world for a long time. But Corinne, I want to give you the opportunity, because I know you have to leave, to talk about what they're actually doing in the New Jersey state. Corinne is the Director of Government Relations for the state of New Jersey, and she works for the American Stroke Association. So we're really honored to have you today, because the American Stroke Association really is, I love them, because they really want to make a difference, and they go about things in the right way, and they stand for the right things. That doesn't mean that I don't respect all the organizations, but we partner with the American Stroke Association, and they're doing wonderful work. So Corinne, if you could just take a moment to share with us what they're doing moving forward, so that we could get to the next step.
Thank you for inviting me today. My name is Corinne Orlando. As Renee mentioned, I'm the Government Relations Director for the state of New Jersey, for the American Heart Association and the American Stroke Association. And I was invited today to speak about what we're currently doing in New Jersey around stroke. Back in January of 2020, Governor Murphy signed a bill to implement some changes to the stroke system of care in New Jersey. It was something that we had worked on for about 6 years, but it finally got signed into law back in January of 2020, so we were really excited about that. But what it does is, in New Jersey, for about the past at least 10 years, I'm trying to remember, it might have been started in 2004, but they started implementing a system where we had comprehensive and primary stroke centers. Comprehensive kind of providing that higher level of care, and then primary being able to treat most types of strokes. And this was great. It was really a move in the right direction. But after about 10 years, we realized that there really wasn't a system in place to ensure that that all the hospitals that had this designation were still meeting the requirements. So what we had asked them to consider doing was, instead of having a state designated comprehensive and primary stroke center, instead ensuring that the hospitals that had this designation were actually certified by an outside accredited body, such as the Joint Commission or DNV, and some of these other organizations that provide certification. So, we were pretty successful in doing that in the end, but again, it did take quite some time because we had some pushback, from the hospital saying why we have to change the process, and because change is always difficult. But we realized that we already had 9 of New Jersey's 14 comprehensive stroke centers already had designation from an outside accredited body. I think it was at the time 37 of the 53 primary stroke centers already had this designation. So they were already moving in this direction. This was just sort of formalizing the process and making it a requirement, so it was uniform throughout the system. The bill that we passed also required EMS providers to have protocols in place when they are responding to a stroke call, so that when they get there, they know what to do, and they're acting as quickly as possible in transporting the patient to the proper facility for the level of care that they need based on their symptoms. And then also it added 2 layers of care to the system. So instead of just comprehensive and primary, We also will now have thrombectomy capable hospitals, which that's kind of the level between comprehensive and primary, and then acute stroke care centers, which they're equipped to stabilize a patient and get them to either the primary thrombectomy capable or comprehensive hospital if they need to go to in order to receive care. So these were the major changes that were made by the bill. There also is going to be a panel that the governor is in the process of appointing now. He's appointing members to this panel to oversee and advise the process. It's a panel of experts that work in the field, so we're confident that we're doing the right things and making sure that patients can receive the care that they need as quickly as possible.
I have a silly question for you.
Sure.
I'm an expert in experience of stroke. Can I be on the panel?
Well, I think that there are requirements for who's on the panel, so.
Just asking. I wrote just a little side note. I wrote a letter to the president of the United States and asked him if I could be an ambassador for stroke. So if I go to state, it's the same thing.
Ambassador. You are an ambassador for stroke.
So, a stroke, Corinne does an exceptional job. I've been working with her for a few years, and I went to Trenton, I went to Washington, D.C. with them to be an ambassador for strokes, to really, it's just a wonderful organization. And and Corinne, you lead the way in such a great way. You really represent the company to its highest standard. You're very loving. You're very warm. I remember the first time Sharon had introduced us, you just came down and we went to Puzo's and we sat there, we talked. And so, you're really very value to the company because you do a great job and you really stand strong for them. And not only that, but even with her kindness and gentleness, she strives to make a difference in the government. Like you said, it takes a long time. It takes constant drive to do it. So thank you so much for all you're doing for us.
Well, thank you for your kind words, but we certainly couldn't do it without volunteers like you. We really are, the backbone of the work that we do. So, we have kind of helped lead the way, but we certainly couldn't do it without all of our volunteers and advocates throughout the state.
I agree. That's why we're doing this today, because we really want to make a difference. So thank you so much, Corinne. So just let me know when you're going to hop off.
All right, thanks.
Bye, Corinne. Sorry. Mark, so talk to us a little bit about being the visual, right? I mean, here is a guy, a TV host, leading the way, meeting presidents, meeting A-streamers, meeting everybody in the world, and then you suffer a stroke, and your life changed. It really changed. It really changed, and it breaks my heart because I believe you're the best, and I believe you should be back in that mainstream. So talk to us a little bit about how that felt.
Thank you, ReneMarie. I was on CBS in the morning for 16 years as a weatherman. I did all the entertainment, the Oscars, the Grammys, the Golden Globes. And I anchored and blah, 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 blah. Came here to Orlando to anchor, and here I had my stroke and my life changed. At first, I was in intensive care, in a coma, rehab for a year. I had to learn to walk and talk and everything all again. And it changed my life. You tend to read about bad things happening to other people. Then it happens to you and you are devastated. You want the world to stop because you have. Doesn't work that way. I tell survivors, you have to be stubborn. You have to be pigheaded. You have to you can't give up. You have to go forward. A number of things. I'm right-handed. My stroke was ischemic, a word I didn't know before I had my stroke. And so my writing was all squiggly and my right hand shakes. I do everything left-handed. I write left-handed. I shave left-handed. I put my contacts in left-handed. So then, what do you do? My career was on TV. That ended. And then it slowly began again. And I did a thing for the local station called Positive Mark. And I would tell stories about people. I like uplifting things. I like good things. I like to tell stories about that. Now I'm on a network called the Black News Channel. I host a show called All Things Men. And ReneMarie being back on TV, being the host is great.
It's where you belong, Mark. It's where you belong.
Well, here's the thing also. My producer, who I think is really, really good, is a stroke survivor himself.
We have to get him on.
Right. I think that there is a story in itself. There is life after stroke. Just because you've had one, you can't just say, that's it. No, you have to keep going forward. You have to, when I speak all around the country, COVID-19 kind of put a pin in that. But the last time I spoke was up in Toronto to the Canadian March of Dimes. They do great work for stroke survivors and caregivers and all that. When I speak to places, I tell the person who brought me there, hold on, because I can see these survivors sitting in wheelchairs with their arms up, with their mouths droop. Some have no symptoms or after effects, but either way, I go over to them and it's like going home because I hug them. I tell them my philosophy because I want them to know my neighbor didn't have a stroke, my coworker didn't have a stroke, I did. So I know exactly what I'm talking about when I talk to you. I know what you're thinking, I know what you're feeling. And so I want people to say, if he can do it, I can do it. Yeah. And that's, I think it was Jason said, the new normal. New normal is being a stroke survivor and caregivers and the new importance. But the new normal doesn't mean that everything goes away. It is the new normal. And this is the world we live in. I always say, these are the cards that have been dealt. Let's play cards.
Yeah, yeah. And I think that's why I believe that you should be back on CBS because you can be the example that there is life after stroke and there's life after any illness, that you've come back. And yeah, it's a new Mark, you know, but it's a better Mark because look what he's gone through and look what he has accomplished. And look, he's back where he was before his stroke in a different manner, and he's really standing strong. That's why I believe in you, Mark. That's why I believe in you.
ReneMarie, thank you very much. And, you know, I always say, I don't know nothing.
Me neither.
All I know is what's in front of me. And I give all props to my mom and dad because they put no give up in this dog. They taught me a certain way to be. And someone said earlier, they're going to cry. I may cry. But yeah, you have to go forward. You have to show people, don't give up. Don't give up.
Yep, we love you, Mark.
Thank you.
We're a team with you. So we've been doing this for an hour, and the next hour is going to really focus on all the doctors and everything. But before we get there, and I know I still want Eddie and Dina to talk about their insurance, and I really want Andrew next. But I want Dr. Jim, to really start this conversation with, and then we'll go to Mark with hope. You know, Dr. Jim wrote a book which talks about life after an illness. So talk to us a little bit about that, Dr. Jim.
Well, I think Mark just said it, that there's life after a stroke. That's the title of my book, is Life After Diagnosis. And we've had 18 people in our family with cancer. My first wife passed 25 years ago next week. And life certainly changed a lot during this time. But I want to read one scripture, because I sent you a note because I wasn't even sure I was going to make it at the beginning, because I had two phone calls this morning from two people in crisis. And I had to, what I had to do was I had to read them and share some things with them. And I went to Hebrews chapter 11, for those of you that are faith folks. It says this, and I'm reading from the Amplified Translation. And I had asked, God, what he wanted me to share. Renee said about hope, and this is one of the finest verses. It says, now faith is the assurance, the confirmation, title deed of things we hope for, being the proof of the things we do not see, and the conviction of their reality. Faith perceiving as real fact what is not revealed to the senses. And somebody, I don't know if it was Mark who used it or somebody before, or maybe it was Corinne that used it, about preparation. We need to prepare ourselves for life. We don't do that. Everybody thinks they're going to blow through life and everything's going to be fine. Nobody thinks they're going to be a cancer patient or a stroke victim or a heart attack or anything. I've had a heart attack and lost a lot of people to cancer, lost a lot of friends the last couple of years to COVID. I mean, life is changing all the time. You have to be ready for change. Nobody likes change. But what you have to do is you have to be able to see beyond all of that. And we've had people that have been in horrible situations, horribly debilitated, and people that are helping. At least I discovered that many years ago, that in order to help people that are in these dire situations, you have to be able to see beyond.
I'm going to mute myself.
You got to be able to see beyond what the existing situation. You can't look at what you see with your eyes. You have to look in the realm of the spirit. You have to see beyond that. Mark, my chiropractor, Mike Evangel, Dr. Mike, that's how I met Judy. But you got to be able to see beyond the situation you're in. He used the word creator. I believe in a creator. And the reason those of us that help people can come with creative solutions is because there is a creator, and he's the one that gives us that. And any of us that think that we're smart enough to think all that stuff up, we got to rethink that too. Because none of us are like that. We're not that smart. You look at these situations that people are in that are so dire. I know people ask me all the time, how do you walk into a hospital room with all the bells, the whistles, the tubes, the bottles up on the poles, and look at all of that and have any hope? Well, the reason is because you see beyond that. You got to see past all that stuff. You have to see the person. You have to see what God has intended for them in life, and you got to help them move toward that. And that's what I was doing this morning, early this morning, and doing it on the phone. Didn't have any choice but doing it on the phone. Somebody in out of state in a hospital room who overnight went there and has been there for almost 4 weeks and will be there for almost another 2, and at least. And you have to be able to see past all of that stuff. That's the hope comes from God. And that's why I said this, it's fact. The faith is perceiving as real what is not revealed to the senses. What you can't see, what you can't feel, what you can't handle, you got to be able to see that. And you got to see into that realm. And if you can see into that realm, then you can begin to speak into these different situations. And I'm a firm believer in the words that we speak either bring life or they bring death. And there's so many people that speak death. All you got to do is, sorry about the TV thing, but you turn on the TV and you'll hear death all the time. You'll hear death and disappointment and hopelessness and chaos. We have to live in another world. those of us that are helping people in crisis, you have to live in another realm. And the realm you have to live in is the realm of the spirit. And you got to be able to see that realm, and you got to be able to speak about that realm and speak that, literally speak that. And when you, I'm sure many of you have had that experience, when you look somebody in the eyes, when you can face to face, when you look them in the eyes and you speak that way to somebody, it penetrates their spirit, and people can come alive with that. People that appear to be dead and hopeless, they can come alive with like that. So this is amazing. The conversation this morning, Judy, the conversation, Renee and Judy, the conversation has been amazing. It's really incredible. I'm blessed by what I have heard. I feel like I wanted to get on the phone and talk to Steve and know more about the identity issue, because I'm working on some identity things myself, and I really like to hear about that, all of that. And
I'll send you the contact information. I'll
yeah,
send you his
good.
contact information. Yeah, you got to connect with a lot of people on this show.
Yeah,
Mark,
it's
Brenda,
really amazing.
Yep, and we're blessed to have you as part of our team as well.
Well, thank you. I appreciate you inviting me to be here, and thank you to Dr. Mike for connecting us.
Yes. So speaking of hope, we got to jump over to Nicole and Veronica. Nicole wrote a wonderful book, Holding On to Hope. Give us a really snippet of your story. And I think I shared with everybody, but we have some new people that just joined us. Rob, hi Rob, how are you today? Nice to see you. I haven't forgotten about everybody. I'm just trying to navigate around it. Everybody will have the opportunity to share. Steve, hi, how are you today? Thank you for joining us. And who else just joined us? Because people had other obligations, so they were hopping on a little bit after, and Corinne already left. So thank you so much. So let's go to Nicole. Tell us, I was gonna say that Veronica really is the backbone to Nicole. And Nicole is now her backbone, and Veronica just got out of the hospital, and we're so blessed. We had no idea she was going to join us today, but we're so blessed to have you joining us today, Veronica. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yes, yes. So tell us a little bit, and then I want you to talk about your app, and then I promise I'll get to everybody else who I shared that I wanted you to speak and stuff.
Yeah, sure. So Holding On to Hope, Finding the New You After a Traumatic Brain Injury is a book that I wrote over the last year and published on Amazon in January. It's my story. I sustained traumatic brain injury as a 16-year-old in a motorcycle accident, died 3 times, was given the prognosis, expect death or life in a vegetative state. I was comatose, deep coma for 3 weeks, and woke up unable to talk, unable to walk, unable to control any of my bodily functions. And basically, Holding On to Hope is I'm also a rehabilitation counsellor, and I work in the occupational health industry, have done for 16 years. So it's written with a solution-focused perspective. It's my story, but it also includes strategies, tools, and resources to help people overcome barriers associated with brain injury. Basically, yeah, the symptoms I have today, I've had to continue to develop strategies. They change all the time. And through writing the book, I joined a heap of Facebook groups specifically for people with brain injury, which I'd never done before. And I realized there were so many stories of people who were really struggling with that short-term memory, and it inspired me to create a solution. And that's where the Rethink Memory Management app came in, and it's now live on Google Play and the App Store and free for anyone to use. It's it's time management for appointments and tasks. It's got brain training games. It's got rehab articles on it. It's a communication tool. If you've got a carer involved, you need a carer to take you on appointments. It links communication on appointments and things like that. It's amazing.
And it lets you take control of your life again, to feel like you have some control over your life. That's really the gift about it. Is it really allows you to see in one space where you're able to navigate your life around. So
promotes independence, promotes, proactivity around your own rehab. Yeah. Amazing feedback so far.
It's a gift, and we're gonna work on promoting it and everything. So, and I hope everybody in this on the show doesn't mind, but later on I'll send it to you so you can just have it as a resource for yourself, because it really is very important, very important. Mark and Brenda. Mark, I know that you'd like to talk about supporting the African American community during about strokes, because, and hope and faith, of course. But we have a doctor on, I don't know the statistics for Afro Americans with strokes, but I know it's very high, or maybe you know them, Mark.
Yeah, African Americans are twice as likely to have a stroke as other races.
Wow. So talk about how you generate information to them, what you do that's different when you're sharing the information with them. I mean, how could we get the notice out to them, and what could they do to prevent strokes? I mean, how could we turn that around? And I know Brenda, you were a nurse, right?
Correct. Yes, I'm retired now, but yes, I do have that training. So it's helped me to be a different kind of caregiver and care sharer.
Wow. So tell us a little bit about it, Mark.
Well, thank you again, Renee. Renee, as in, I guess, 2007, at the age of 46, I suffered 2 strokes, serious strokes, left me like some of the other participants, lost the use of the left side, lost vision, had to have major brain surgery, and was fortunate enough to recover. And what I've learned over those 3 years, Renee, is you talked about the hair. I use this acronym all the time, PRR, and it's about prevention, it's about recognition, and it's about recovery. And prevention is important because the American Stroke Association, American Heart Association talks all the time that 80% of strokes can be preventable. So important, we talk about the African American community, that we educate them on that. The other aspect is recognition. Renee, you heard one of your doctors earlier say today that time is brain. It's important. The sooner we can realize we're having a stroke, the sooner we can get care, the better our chance of recovery, which is the third leg, which is recovery. Recovery is important. Quality of life is important. Hope is important. I had 2 serious strokes, but yet we lead a normal life. And I tell people every day, I pretty much everything I could do today, I was able to do prior to the stroke. It may be a little bit different. And we talk about the new norm, and you gotta modify things. I've lost peripheral vision. When I drive, a lot of times I've lost peripheral vision on the left side. I'll try to get in the left-hand lane so I can eliminate, the fact that I have no left peripheral vision. I'm still scanning, but I want to get in the left-hand lane so I can eliminate that risk. Things of that nature. And that's the whole part. But Renee, what we have to do in the African American community, because we know African Americans are twice as likely to have a stroke as others, is talk about really prevention, the things we can do to prevent having a stroke, and then recognition of things that we can do. We talk about the FAST, how we can recognize that we're having a stroke so we can get to the hospital. Again, I think your earlier doctor said, time is brain. It's important.
Wow. And and I don't know this, maybe Brenda knows this. Does the Afro-American population suffer strokes because they're less aware of the signs, or is it something within their genes that has them suffer a stroke more frequently?
Well, over the course of history, because of where a lot of our populations exist, and because of financial and disparaging segments of our communities, we have not had the best diets. We've not necessarily accessed healthcare at the same rates as other populations. There has been some disparity in where we've been able to get care and the quality of care that our communities actually have normally had, whether they be urban or rural. So there's a history, and of course, then there are some genetic factors that have a higher risk for hypertension and high cholesterol, etc. But there's a lot of lifestyle change as well. Then also in our communities, there can be a great deal of fear with regard to healthcare and how it's being given. So we have to meet our communities where they are. And many times it is in our faith-based houses that we are able to talk to our, whether it be African American or Latinos. We can meet people right in the communities and talk to them specifically about what they can expect and how healthcare needs to change for them, and advocate for them in the places that they're most comfortable in talking. And so that's what we do. We like to, kind of partner with AHA and other organizations to reach people, whether it's in their houses of worship or in their community centers, going to places where we know we can commune and feel comfortable. So that helps us to be good partners and advocates for our communities.
Wow. And I know that you guys wrote a book called A Stroke of Faith.
Yes.
Because faith really, I believe that everybody believes that faith plays a strong part in any recovery, any life in general. It doesn't matter what faith you are. To me, it doesn't matter. It just matters that you have some sort of faith to hold on to when things get a little bit out of control. But my thing is that you need to have that faith all along, not so much just when something goes wrong. And I know that that's such an important, that's my biggest, lesson in life, is to teach people to have faith, be kind. And I wanted to share before, when Dr. Jim was talking, TJ Jakes just wrote an incredible book called Don't Drop the Mic. I recommend everybody gets it. It really teaches, it really talks about, I'm just listening to it now, but I heard him on Joel Osteen, and it really talks about how your words can really impact people's lives. And you really have to think about what you say before you say it, because you could either bring people up or you can knock them down. And it's really hard to take back what you say. You can apologize, it can be forgiven and forgotten, but in the back of your mind, thanks, Peter, in the back of your mind, it's always in
Okay. Yeah.
Charlotte, I put you on mute, sorry, because we can hear you talking. So. Can you hear me, Charlotte? Hello? Can you hear me? That's okay. It's okay. You can leave it. You can leave it. I just wanted to let you know why I put you on mute. Can you hear me, Charlotte? I don't think she can hear me.
Here we go.
They are adorable.
Aren't they?
No, we are.
They're wonderful.
Hello.
Yes.
Good morning.
Hi. Good morning. Good morning.
Actually, we're hearing double here.
You're hearing double?
No, we can't hear. I can hear you, but there's also a double kind of an echo. And unfortunately, it was echoing two people at the same time. So it's doubly important, right?
That's right. That's right. That's right.
But anyway, I'd like to introduce my friend, who is also a pageant. That's what we're getting. We can't understand you.
That's okay. We're just going to move on because we only have a few minutes left in the show, about 40 minutes left. And I just want to make sure I give everybody the opportunity. So if you don't mind. Yes.
What you're doing.
Thank you, Charlotte. Let me know if you stops and you can talk. So I want Andrew, would you mind talking a little bit about, let me see here. So Andrew used to be the former New York Association of Healthcare Provider elected official of 2017. What's that?
No, you kind of jumbled up a couple of things there, but that's okay.
You could correct me, but I really want to thank you for being on the show and really for all the work you did. And I always say this to everybody that I really don't care what political party you are, but Andrew really does things from his heart, and he really stands true to who he is. So I just want to give you all the credit in the world, Andrew, for being who you are, for really making a difference, a positive difference in the healthcare. So talk to us a little bit about the healthcare, because I know. Do you still follow it?
I sure, and well, for 17 years I was a member of the state assembly. Many of those years I was the ranking member on the state assembly's health committee. So that's where we came into being together. But now in my new role as town clerk, I actually have to sign every death certificate that occurs. So I see the people that die of stroke. I've also seen people that had COVID and then died of strokes a couple of weeks later due to blood clots. So, this is so far reaching. And just when you think you know just about everything that goes on with strokes and what may cause them, you find out that, nature has something else in store for us. But as you know, one of my pet peeves in New York State is we have we're in the top 10 largest economies in the world. That's countries and us. This year, the state increased spending dramatically. Our state budget is $212 billion a year. Unfortunately, even though we increased spending for just about everything under the sun, the one thing we didn't increase spending on is the treatment of strokes. Now, while our hospital system in New York State, as we heard earlier from the individual from New Jersey, we already do that in New York State. We know where to get you, when to get you there. But if we don't supply additional funding for the resources that you need after a stroke, it really doesn't matter if we save your life, right? So it's incumbent upon everybody listening to this show to pick up a phone, write an email to the governor, to your state representatives, and let them know. All too often in New York State, I define spending in a state as kind of like a bottle. You got the bottle's big down below, has a little bottleneck up top. All of those interests are trying to get through that little neck of that bottle. And unless you speak out, make your voice heard, you are not going to get the piece of pie that we deserve. So when you're done today, everybody listening, everybody participating, it doesn't matter what state you live in, reach out to your state legislators and demand more funding for stroke prevention, demand more funding for services for those people that have had a stroke.
Wow. Yep. I agree, Andrew. And Venice and Jean, I see a lot of people shaking their heads. I know Venice and ReneMarie and Eddie and Dina. Let's get into the conversation. Venice, you do a lot of striving for all that. So talk to us about that.
Sure. So I've been I am a doctor of physical therapy and have a private practice, but prior to that, I worked in the rehab field with 80% stroke patients. Unfortunately, when I was a Stony Brook student in the physical therapy department, my grandmother had a stroke, so I knew it firsthand. And then fast forward, my dad had one of many. First was at 56. When he died at 73, he had probably about 7 strokes along that time. TPA was wonderful a few times. And then unfortunately, the last one, they didn't get it in time. But that's okay. He lived a really long time. I advocate, I have been going up to Albany. I saw Andrew Ray plenty times and in the state assembly, because I lobby as a physical therapist to try to advocate for patients, whether it is limited visits, whether it is high copay. Some of my patients are paying 80 to 100% of the reimbursement on their copay. We're talking $50 to $75 per copay visit. So we're trying right now. There's a bill up in Albany, the copay bill, to limit the amount the patient has to pay to 20% of their copay. The other thing, it's not fair. If someone has thousands of dollars worth of, or hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of medical care, and yet less than 1% of medical costs are on physical therapy. But as physical therapists, we get you back to movement, we get you back to function. Yet that part is shrunk down to maybe 2 months or 20 visits, or even less with some of these plans. So advocating for that rehab, it's great to have all the medical care, but once you get home, you're back to functioning. And many people can't afford, they've lost their job, they've lost their career, and now what they need, they can't get. So we try desperately to advocate for patients, and it's so important for everyone to do that.
And you're still doing that now?
Oh yeah, we have a virtual lobby day going on this month on May 13th.
Wow, thank you so much. Thank you so much for all you do. You are incredible, and we love you, and we're so grateful for you to be a part of our show. Your education and your care really is important, because first of all, we believe that money shouldn't be have anything to do with recovery. And how does the insurance world know that a person that suffered a stroke, how do they know the extent of their recovery and their physical therapy? They don't, or their speech therapy. They don't, they can't. I mean, each individual each case is individual. And I mean, with me, I could still use, I mean, it's been 30 years and my arm still needs physical therapy. And actually it needs a massage on 3 times a week, but I can't afford to go 3 times a week to a masseuse, and it's not covered by the insurance. So there's a lot of stuff that yourself and Andrew really target on. So thank you so much, Andrew. And
one of the other speakers talked about prevention. Unfortunately, healthcare doesn't pay for preventative care, doesn't pay for maintenance care. And that's what you need, that maintenance, prevention. They'll pay if someone falls because of a balance disorder and breaks their hip, and thousands of dollars later, but they won't pay for the prevention of the fall if someone has a problem walking. So other countries do. Other countries will pay for someone that has a back problem. They'll give them 1 or 2 back massages as part of their care and per month. And it really works.
And isn't it truth that it would be more cost effective to do preventative care than if somebody, because the preventative care is less than if somebody gets sick or gets hurt by preventing things. So the concept just doesn't make sense, it just. So if you need us to go to bat with you, let us know. We would be more than happy. Anything you need, let us know.
Thank you.
So ReneMarie, I don't see ReneMarie. Oh, ReneMarie. So talk to us a little bit about that. We wanted to strive. We wanted to, we want to make a change. We want, and we know as business leaders, that you can't make change by just demanding it. You gotta fight for things. You gotta stay the course, and you gotta have conversations. You have to be able to negotiate, which was something I had. What was the assemblyman's name that we had on, Judy? Dr. Michael Fitzpatrick.
Yes.
Yeah, we had him on the show, and I really enjoyed a conversation.
He's not a doctor. He may play one
not
on
a doctor.
TV.
I'm sorry, not
Someone,
Fitzpatrick. I had him
Some
on.
of it.
Tell him I
And
made
my
him,
dear friend.
yeah, tell him
maybe
I
we're
made
making
him
him a doctor.
Tell him I made him a doctor, okay?
Yes.
A doctor of government. I don't know. Anyway,
Governmental doctor.
Yeah, so I had a conversation with him, but we really had an interesting conversation back and forth about things. So talk to us a little bit about that, ReneMarie.
So to raise awareness for therapies to move forward, and that's exactly what Venice said. One of our main issues we had was the therapy. And it also comes down to writing the notes from when you're in your rehab, that they need to have the proper notes written. And if the proper notes are not written, then you have to go home. And then what do you do? And we found ourselves in a situation where we didn't have therapy after we were in there for 3 months, and mom needed extensive therapy. She had global aphasia. She was just starting to walk up a step, and then everything stopped. And then we were only provided 1 session a week, which is not your long-term therapy that you need to get back to a somewhat of a normal life. But our biggest struggle was vision, and which I wanted to segue into Dr. Cianzo. She was very instrumental. We've been speaking about how do we start to raise our voices louder to have vision therapy as part of this package. You have OT, PT, you have speech, but what about vision? You can't walk if you can't see. You can't speak if you don't know what you're trying to look at. You have all of these obstacles, and you have no way to bring all of this together. So this is what my foundation is focusing on, is trying to raise awareness, is, as Andrew said, to get our governor, to get legislator going of, we need funding. We need to get this for people in poor communities that don't have the money. They don't have the capability. They don't have the extensions of bringing into their families or the support. So how do we bring that to them? And Dr. Cianzo, who many years later started to work with my mother in helping her with her vision. But when you have global aphasia and you have difficulty, you can't speak, you need a therapist, a vision therapist that will be able to help. That is not provided anywhere right now. So as we stated, we need to raise our voices. We need to make sure that we could advocate and get this to be funded across the board, across the states, so that people could see better. They could see what they're doing. So there was a few people that said, I don't have peripheral vision. My mother had field cuts. She couldn't reach over, and the frustration and the depression, it was all a part of it. And if you don't have that family foundation and you don't have the extensions of people coming in there and building you up, how is that survivor going to move forward and recover? If they don't have the strength within them, how do they do it if you don't have this for them? So advocating for a patient, advocating for a survivor, and making your voices loud to our governors. We need funding. We need to have long-term therapies for a year, 2 years, maybe for the rest of your life, and not just 10 sessions a year. That doesn't do anything. Once a week doesn't do anything.
Can you start a petition on that? Like a petition? Is that something that we could start a petition on?
Yes. And again, segueing to Dr. Cianzo, I would love for her to take over for that. We were speaking about how could we do that together, if she would like to take that over.
And you could take it over, Doctor, but I want to mention something that I'm sad to see that. I believe the concept is that once you suffer a stroke, and there's so many illnesses, but we're just focusing on strokes and aphasia, is that when you suffer a stroke, you should be happy to be alive and not worry about really fully recovering, when you should be able to recover to the fullest of your capabilities, because sometimes you can't, so that's really sad to me, that we only have certain people that take how do I say this? Take like strokes under their belt. Like each governmental person, and Andrew, can you correct me if I'm wrong in this? I believe that each governmental person has a specific topic they geared towards. Am I correct in my mind thought?
Well, we all, every member of a legislature, whether it's a county legislature, whether it's town or state or federal, you all serve on various committees. Those committees can change. Generally, most elected officials try to specialize in one committee as much as possible, like I did with the health committee. But I was the head of various other committees before getting to my sweet spot, so to speak. So you generally you serve on many different committees, anything from transportation to healthcare to insurance. So any elected official probably has a pretty good idea and understanding of what's going on in all levels of that particular level of government.
Wow, thank you, Andrew. So Dr. Jen, tell us a little bit. Talk about what Jean Marie was talking about.
Yeah, I have to say that this is such an important conversation because you're bringing together people who are discussing prevention, then that immediate care. You have to survive the stroke to go into the rehabilitative phase. And then you have people coming on like Mark who are talking about the hope that you have to bring forward, because if you don't keep the hope alive, you don't seek out the care that you need. And there's a lot of awareness of different kinds of care. So my area of vision, I see all of it together, just like Venice was saying. There are people who need the PT, and they don't just need it for a day, like Jean Marie was saying. They don't just need it for those 2 months in the hospital. You can have recovery happening from a year, 2 years, 3 years, 6 years. I've seen people 10 years. Exactly, ReneMarie.
30 years. 30 years.
There's no awareness of this. There are so many doctors. And Mark and I actually ended up on the show together by a stroke of luck, use that phrase. And we talked about that, didn't we? That it's such an important job for doctors to keep the hope alive. Do not, just because what you can do is over, don't look at someone and say, well, then you're done. This is all. This is as good as it's going to get. It's never true. I don't believe that. It's never true. And if anyone tells you they know it all, it's not true. With vision, my area, Mark was talking about his left-sided visual field loss. Many doctors would tell a patient, well, you're done. There's nothing you can do. Incorrect. You can actually, there are special medical devices that expand that visual field. There are therapies that can help you physically have a wider field of vision after a stroke. It's been proven over and over again, but there's no awareness in a lot of the neurology treatment that people are receiving. They're not aware that you can increase. You may not get it back to everything you have. You may get the new normal instead of, what you had after the stroke. But hey, the new normal's better. More is better. But people,
and that's why. But that's why I said, you got. I mean, to the extent that you can get back, and the truth is that. Let me ask you this: vision can increase and decrease, because I know with my right side, it sometimes in the warmth it gets easier for me, and in the cold it gets harder because I tense up. Does that happen with the eyes at all?
Well, not necessarily with temperature, but certainly on days when we have more energy, people have better vision. And I'm not talking 20/20. You got to think beyond 20/20. 20/20 just means that 20 feet away, I can see a font size. That doesn't tell you anything about how wide is the field of vision. That's very commonly affected after a stroke. It doesn't tell you how well the person moves their eyes. You have almost half of the nerves that come directly from the brain that help control our essential functions, our vision, our hearing, our speech. All of these, half the nerves deal with vision and aiming your eyes in the right place at the right time. Just like if you don't place your foot in the right place at the right time, which physical therapists know exactly, what that's about. If you're not looking, if you're not aiming your eyes at the right place at the right time, your eyes guide your foot, they guide your hand. the person is seeing double. Like ReneMarie said, how are they going to take advantage of new technologies now that we're in a Zoom world? If you were looking at this screen and you saw the whole thing double, how long could you sit here for 2 hours and take part in this? No. There are therapies and there are devices, medical devices. Eyeglasses are medical devices. But again, talking about the legislation and the cost that we spoke about with Venice and Andrew and so many people don't have access to this. So many communities, African American communities, don't necessarily have access to this. It is really critically important to bring this to lower income communities, to ethnically diverse communities, not just vision therapy, but all the therapies that are out there. Preventative care, immediate care, and then rehabilitative care. That is the key. And vision is, I agree with ReneMarie, a key component of this. And there's so little awareness and there's so little ability for us to be right there in the rehabilitation centers. It's critical. It's important.
Wow. So what we're going to do now is we're going to help you to get that awareness out. Anything you need from us, let us know. We're partnering with you to anything you need.
Absolutely. I'm inspired myself just listening to Mark speak about bringing this into more African American communities. My mind is going. I'm like, there are a lot of ways, and Zoom brings us all together. Look at us. We're from all over the country.
Yeah,
from
all over the world. All over the world.
Yeah. Here we are discussing this on a Sunday morning, all these passionate people who just want to see stroke survivors with hope and care and moving forward and living their best lives. Wow.
Thank you, doctor. Thank you. That's incredible.
I love it.
Yes, and I love it too. And I'm so happy to have this opportunity. Dr. Mike, I want you to chime in because we talked about you preventative and how, and afterwards as well, how you could stay balanced and that. So talk to us a little bit about that.
Okay, as far as preventative, there's a lot of factors that go into this, and we could speak for hours on this, but basically all those things your grandmother used to, we don't have hours. Things your grandmother used to tell you as far as, eat your vegetables, diet is extremely important, and not, eating a lot of fried foods and eating a well-balanced diet, look at the rainbow of colors, all the fruits and vegetables, and trying to keep your triglycerides low. We've really been discussing that because latest research shows that triglycerides might even be a lot more dangerous than cholesterol as far as cardiovascular disease. And L-arginine is a amino acid that I really didn't talk about too much in the past because I've really been studying a lot about it now. And it increases the nitric oxide production, which increases blood flow, also increases human growth hormone, and controls insulin more. And vitamin D is extremely important too, because we're talking before the show about vitamin D a little bit, but we're talking about the Black community, and darker your skin is, the less vitamin D it produces. So especially with, dark-skinned individuals, they need to supplement with vitamin D. And vitamin D impacts over 10% of the human genetic makeup directly, and directly turns on and off 291 genes. And it's also very involved in injury repair, which is extremely important for, post-stroke situations. But wanted to mention a little bit, because we haven't talked about that much, about the recognition if somebody is having a stroke. Really haven't gotten into that. And that's extremely important because we're talking about how time is so important. But be fast, P-E-F-A-S-T. You can think about that. B is for balance. If somebody's losing their balance, their coordination, that's a sign they could be having a stroke. And E for the eyes. If they can't really focus the eyes properly and they can't see, if they have blurred vision in one or two eyes, it's indication of a possible stroke. And F is for the face. If they can't smile evenly, if they can't raise their eyebrows, they have numbness or loss of feeling part of the face. And control their arms. If they can't reach their arms up equally, or they have lack of use of one of their arms. I know somebody had a stroke and they were drying their hair. They couldn't pick up their arms to use the hair dryer. And S is for speech, and slurred speech, and inability to repeat simple sentences. And T is either for test, to get tested, or time, because time is of the essence, to call 911. Err on the side of caution. If you think somebody might be having a stroke, I know I can't technically discuss taking aspirin, but I can say I read, because as a chiropractor, I can't even tell somebody if they think they have a stroke, having a stroke, to take an aspirin. I can't say that. So I didn't say that. So, and also dehydration.
You read it somewhere.
I read it someplace, right. And dehydration is extremely important, because the higher the viscosity of the blood is, the more you could possibly have a stroke. And the INR test is a test that we use a lot for determining how thick the blood is. The thicker the blood, the more chance of a stroke. We really didn't talk about before the two different types of stroke. One is ischemic. We talked about that a little bit before, where there's some type of blockage. And the other one is a hemorrhagic stroke. With a hemorrhagic stroke, you have to be careful of your homocysteine levels, because homocysteine is an amino acid that breaks down elastin, which is in the blood vessels. As elastin breaks down, you can get more of a chance of a blood vessel breaking. And there's homocysteine blood tests. I try to get all my patients to get that done. And there's actually a genetic link to that, because there's a hyperhomocysteinemia, which is the C677T mutation. And that's when somebody has that, and that could be very bad. And if you don't know you have that, it's a good thing to get tested for. So I know I said a lot in a short amount of time, because I know we have a limited amount of time and people have to still chime in. So I think I said enough right at the moment. Renee, you there?
Sorry, I'm here. I
Okay.
was just, so I had to fix my camera.
Because I'll keep on talking.
No. I want to thank everybody for your patience, because I know it's been a lot and some people are just sitting and waiting to have the opportunity to talk. But it really was important to have this many people, because I really, once again, wanted to join everybody together to show the world what the impact of a stroke could be, and how many different pieces to the puzzle it takes to navigate after a stroke or during a stroke, and really all the pieces that you need to gather together to prevent a stroke. So I want to thank everybody for their time and patience before.
Renee, I just wanted to say one more thing though about vitamin D. It's extremely important also for post-stroke survivors, because injury repair is vital with vitamin D. They did a study a number of years ago at the NFL Combine, and they found there's a high correlation between the athletes with low vitamin D and the amount of time that they were injured in college. So that's extremely important for everybody to get their vitamin D levels up, and also for preventing COVID-19, vitamin D. Okay.
Wow. It's funny.
If I can jump in real quick.
Okay.
Michael is 100% correct on the vitamin D. Most Americans don't even know they're deficient. And even with COVID, there's been linkage to having high levels of vitamin D and being able to fend off the disease.
And that's one of the reasons why the Black community a higher level of COVID, because they have low levels of vitamin D, because the darkness in the skin, they can't prevent it. So that for Black individuals, they really have to supplement. And I like to see levels, the labs say over 30. I like to see my patients around 80. Because then they're in really good shape.
Wow. And I tell you, when I was dealing with COVID, because I experienced having COVID, that I went to Dr. Mike and I said, give me whatever I need to take vitamin wise. I said, because I got, and I went through it gracefully, but, I know that vitamin D, and there was, what was the other one, Dr. Mike?
Zinc is very important, because it stops the virus from replicating, and quercetin gets the zinc into the cell. Selenium's important, vitamin C, but we could do a whole hour on that.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
But I guess from Dr. Mike's standpoint and Andrew's recommendation is that maybe you should go to the doctor and get your levels checked. That would be the best thing to do, and that way you could personally take it moving forward. So I know that Dr. Mike had mentioned NFL. Cindy, we're going to go to you in 2 seconds, but I want to give, who did I want to give? Dina and Eddie the opportunity, because I've been talking about them for a while, because I know that one of the things that we connected on when we were on the show was insurance, and how, and you know, we've had that conversation on the show. But what I mean, and Eddie, what were you you an attorney? I forgot.
No, not at all.
What's your position?
I'm an architect, and I work in the building trades.
But you had something you said on the show that, you know, because I was like, I remember saying like, oh, we got a partner, and it had to do with the insurance. So talk to us a little bit about that and why it's so important to you, and if you're doing anything moving forward, or let's start to do something to move forward and join with everybody on this program, because I know we had conversations about it before.
Okay, thank you everybody for inviting us and spending the time and giving us great information. Deanna had a stroke 5 years ago, this month actually, and she spent almost 5.5 months in the hospital before she came home. Insurance, we were always chasing insurance for payments. Towards the end, we had to spend 8 weeks in a rehab facility, and the last 2 weeks of your time spent in a rehab facility is geared towards getting you ready to go home, doing the things that you need to prep to be home. At the end, we had 2 weeks left, and insurance had said that they believed that she did not need to be covered for this anymore. And so I spoke to our team of doctors and nurses at the facility. They were very good. They worked with us. And I asked them straight out, I said, is she ready to go home, or does she need the next 2 weeks? And everybody agreed that we needed at least the next 2 weeks to finish our 8 weeks stint at the last rehab. So we worked out a deal where we would self-pay, which we started doing that. And then the caseworker in the facility spoke to me on the side and said, speak to the New York State Insurance Board, which I did. And miraculously, the insurance came back and covered us for the last 2 weeks, which those last 2 weeks were just as important as the first 2 weeks. And moving forward, once we got home, our insurance plan was pretty good compared to what I hear a lot of people have. We were allowed 30 PT visits for the course of the year. Deanna needed all the PT she could get. She had a hard time speaking. We had speech therapy, we had occupational therapy, and we had physical therapy.
But all three linked into one visit.
No, that's actually opposite. If we were to go for a visit, we would have physical therapy, occupational therapy, and speech therapy back to back. That would be 3 visits.
Right.
We were only at the facility for one time. That counted as 3 visits. So in essence, we had 10 visits. She needed to be there 3 days a week. And after that, we self-paid.
Wow. And thank God you were able to self-pay, right?
Well, we really weren't, but that's another story.
But there's people that even have the resources. They don't even have a place to go to get it.
Yeah.
And that's what really frustrates me about the insurance situation, because I just went to a doctor the other day, my dentist, and they were talking to me about insurance and how much it was going to cost. And I said to them, what if I don't have it to pay? Like, what if I don't have it to pay? Like, what am I supposed to do?
You're out of luck.
Same thing with the stroke world, like, what if we don't have it to pay? I mean, what happens?
Yeah. And that's what I think about, all the people that can't.
Yes, we understand. We understand. We totally get it.
moving forward, we basically left the physical therapy course and we joined a gym. By luck, our trainer that we got was a physical therapy student in her last year of college. She helped us to get started on all the equipment. She helped us to
Wow.
get started in the pool with aquatic exercises.
And the pool, nobody in the stroke world even
recommended that you do the pool.
Well, that's actually not true. They did recommend it towards the end, and I asked them, why did you not recommend this earlier? And they basically said our insurance didn't cover it. So insurance really dictates the kind of care that you should be getting.
And that's what we want to change.
Absolutely.
We want to change that, you know. So yeah, it's pretty intense. So we are going to, like with Dr. Jennifer, she wants to work on the eyes. We're also going to work on other situations that insurances have to navigate through. Because like I said, I'm 30 years after, and I still need some sort of therapy, some sort of activity. And it has to do with my stroke. It's not like I'm just using the system because I had a stroke. You could physically see that I need to do something with my arm. So thank you so much, Eddie and Dina, for telling your story, and whatever we could do for you, we're in. I know we have Jim, Marcia that still needs to talk, Peter that needs to talk. Who else? Steve and Rob and Craig, and Cynthia. So, but Craig, Cindy, Rob, and who else?
Barbara.
Oh, Barbara. Yes, Barbara. But what I wanted to say was, but I wanted you guys to really touch on, not so much you, Barbara, you're next, but I really wanted everybody to focus on the aphasia part and the brain part, because that's really your world, is really the brain. But Barbara, talk to us a little bit about your impact and that you do as a social worker specializing in case management.
So I guess I'm not going to be last. So I was telling myself I was going to be the best, because you always save the best for last.
That's right. Well, the best few minutes of the show are gonna. And Jim, I think we're gonna go a few minutes over, if that's okay. I hope.
Okay. And listening to this, which has been fascinating, I feel I could have a meaningful conversation with everyone here because of my experience of 30 years as a social worker, but I call myself a neurosocial worker. As I believe Steve said, there aren't that many professionals in the world, in the field of brain injury and stroke, but there is no school that you can go to become a neuropsychologist. You get that, you graduate as a psychologist and you get that experience on the job. And the same with psychiatrists, and the same with social worker. So I am a clinical social worker, but 30 years in the field, I'm a neurosocial worker. I wanted to say so many things in terms of research and studies. Australia, I think Australia was the place that initiated a study that's going on in New York Hospital, in France, all over the world in brain injury. So it's interesting to me that the other country is Australia, because that's where I believe that study originated. In terms of different kinds of services, one that hasn't been mentioned is audio. So people that have field of vision problems, they often have audio problems as well, and we have auditory problems, and we don't have an audiologist here. And there are some people that don't hear from one side. If you don't hear from the left side, and that's where the sound is coming from, and you turn to the right, if you're driving or you're functioning in some way, it could be dangerous from that perspective. In terms of accessing services, and because it's such a long-term process and very expensive, many people qualify for disability through Social Security, and they can get services that way. And even better if they can qualify, and often they do, and what's so ironic is that they can get Medicaid, and Medicaid provides a lot of services. They'll even they'll pay for a taxi or an ambulance to take you to services, which no insurance would give you, no private insurance coverage gives you that. So there are ways with married couples or individuals to qualify for Medicaid. It's been done for as long as I can remember. And so people that aren't getting Medicaid and spending a lot of money or need to, they should really look into that with some social worker or financial person should be able to help with that. A lot of people talk about doing things a different way. You learn to compensate, and that's what rehab is all about, is developing strategies to compensate for the losses. So if you know you don't remember things, write things down. Then you won't have the problem of forgetfulness. So getting people to be aware of their needs and compensating, that's a big piece of rehab that is very challenging for everyone.
Barbara, can I step in for 1 second?
Yes.
You're so true on that, because I used to have this fear to speak or even sing because I wasn't going to remember the words. And that's why when I was doing my show, I always hold notes in front of me.
Right.
Because, and the same thing, I said, I always look down to try to refresh myself on what it is I should be talking about. So you're so correct in that. You just got to navigate other forms to be successful,
Right. And one thing that, final thing, I could talk and talk and talk, but one thing I want to say is, in my work as a neurosocial worker, I work as an independent, but there are agencies that work as well for the Department of Health and Medicaid for the Traumatic Brain Injury Waiver Program. And also there's a nursing home transition and diversion program. And these two programs provide fabulous services for people with stroke, traumatic brain injury, and many other illnesses as well. And you have to be Medicaid eligible, but in that position, in my position, when a person gets approved, it's because they have what they call a service coordinator, which is another name for case manager, which is what I've been doing. And I manage cases. I have a caseload. And by the way, I'm only allowed to have 16 cases. These nurses in these healthcare plans, their caseload could be hundreds. I don't know how they can really manage.
We're talking about Medicaid. Usually on
Excuse me? What was the question?
Nope, I muted you because someone was talking. So go ahead. Sorry, it wasn't a question for you.
So there are waiver services on Long Island. And you should contact, the agency is SILO, S-I-L-O, or you can contact me and I can direct you. And there are waiver services all over New York. Other states have them. I believe New Jersey has waiver services, not every state. So you have to decide, see whether you're say, I don't know, I see you were sitting forward, Steve. I don't know whether San Francisco and California has a waiver, but they should. It's a progressive state, so they should have it. So you should look into it and those services also offer support groups and day programs and someone to come in to clean your house, someone to come in to drive you to go do your food shopping, or we'll do the food shopping for you. The driving you, that's not, that's always an issue of insurance and safety. So there are many, many services that are available. And so I could continue speaking about that.
Can we find those services in your book? Can we find
the thing with my book, which is interesting, Renee, is that it was the end of a phase of my life. I had a traumatic injury, a bone injury.
Right.
I was in the hospital for 6 weeks. I remember thinking to myself, this is what hell must be. This is what it's terrible, the pain and the suffering that you go through. And at one point, a nurse said to my nurse, in those days, you could have a bedside nurse. The insurance wouldn't pay for it now, of course. This was in the 88. Take her down for a certain kind of x-ray, which would have been an ordeal for me. And I said, no, I don't want that x-ray. And the nurse said to me, well, you have a right to refuse, but I'm going to mark it down on your chart. And that's when I said to myself, I have a right? What other rights do I have? And that's what the book was about. Your rights as a patient. The rights in hospital are plastered all over the hospital, but nobody reads them. It's a small print. We don't have time when you're in a hospital to read them. And when I finally got well, I was able to work again after 3 years. I got myself a job in a traumatic injury program. I didn't even know about the brain then. I thought it was bone injury. And when I got it to work, I found out it was a brain injury program. So 1991 is when I started my work and began to learn about brain injury and stroke, because we've seen at United Cerebral Palsy on Long Island and Roosevelt, they have many, many different kinds of patients that have brain injuries for different reasons, whether it's a gunshot wound, a stroke, a fall. So we've seen lots, and they have support groups and PT, OT, all the services are there. And that's was where my first job was.
Wow. Thank you so much, Barbara. You really need to write another book now. Yeah, to support, one of my foundation's vision is to start and to really trickle to all hospitals, is to have a team of stroke survivors for when a patient comes in to the stroke world, to the ER, that could right away be connected with a stroke survivor, so that give the family the hope that there is hope after suffering a stroke.
I want to tell you one thing, though, that's positive. There's always positives out of negatives that I learned as far as COVID and brain injury and stroke, is that patients of mine that were going to day programs, that these are people that have pretty severe brain injuries. Now they couldn't go to the day program. So what do they do all day long? And the agency that they were going to, the Head Injury Association and HOPOG, they set up a virtual program. And everybody that I spoke to, the caretakers of my patients, they said, oh no, he'll never be able to do that. He's not going to go on the computer. And well, it turns out that they all focus so much better. They're all on there hours. They tell me I'm on the computer. So
that's
they're getting
incoming
more out of it
email
in that way. So I think that's a
maybe for the AOL.
Yeah, I agree with you, Barbara. Thank you so much. Peter, I know this is like a class. This is like your dream, because you're a researcher. So all these people that have been talking are really feeding your information, right?
I have so many notes, I don't even want to talk about it. I'm collecting email addresses. I'm taking notes. I'm coming up on the 4th edition of my book. And so I'm going to do a thing on vision, because forgot. So I'm going to do that. And I'll be emailing people about vision recovery after brain injury. And I just have a ton of notes here, and I have nothing to say. Oh, I got one thing to say. So I got a podcast out. I'm doing it with a friend of mine who's an occupational therapist, Deb Battistella, and it's called Noggins and Neurons. You guys have talked a lot about what you can do for rehab once rehab is over, and that's what this podcast is about. It's about how to leverage, 86 billion neurons in your brain and a quadrillion synapses so that you can continue making progress. I'm preaching to the converted here, but if you have a person with brain injury or a caregiver or a clinician or a student clinician that's interested in leveraging this great neuroplastic brain that we have, Noggins and Neurons, available on all podcasts, whatever. But some of you need to expect an email from me pretty soon. I'm going to be picking your brains because I prefer to have you write my book and I make the money. That's the way that's the way it works. I got
Sounds good, Peter.
That's really all I have to say. Thanks, guys.
You know what I really think is we should come up with a group email and just send each other information that we could start circulating and support each other. That's my thought on it. That's my thought on it. So I'm so sorry we're running a little bit over, but I wanted to give everybody the opportunity. We're going to start focusing now. Marcia and Jim, let's focus on what your vision is. Marcia, you are such a and then we're going to go into the aphasia world, I promise. Where are you? You're over there. So you're a prominent on LinkedIn. I told you that. You're really leading the way and making a change in simple information every day. And I see it and I share it a lot. I don't know if you see me sharing it, but you guys are such an incredible couple, really working together. And we've heard Jim's side of this story. You can watch our show on that. But I really want you to talk about moving forward, because what you're impacting to move forward.
So it's interesting that you say that because this is my 60th year.
Yay.
And about the time of my birthday, I decided to join a program so that I could learn more about eating and life. And so I'm becoming a life and health coach.
Ah, yay!
And that's what it's all about for me now, because I want to continue to get better myself, and I want to help others around me get better as I go.
Yeah, and I'm also a life coach, and so if you need my help, if you want anything, reach out to me. I would love to support you in anything, any way I can. Jim, do you have any input today on the show? Or, I mean, you're just incredible.
No, some of the things people were saying, it's like, yeah, I went through that as her caregiver, and I would have chimed in and said, yep, that's right. That's what happens. And that's the stuff you need to kind of be preparing for and looking, having people prepare better for events that could happen to them or family members in the future. The biggest one that kind of hits home with me was the insurance discussion we just had. A lot of people buy insurance just to cover the basics, and so they go with something that's not as expensive and detailed. But I think they need to be aware of all the different insurances out there, because if something happens, one of the things they should consider is changing their insurance immediately so that they have an insurance company that will support them at least better than what they had before.
That's very interesting. Very interesting. Because we have an option with insurance, right? We could research what coverage we have, which most of us don't even do. We just take a job and decide to go with it. So
I need to chime in here because I deal with insurance all the time. Venice, when you're thinking about that, make sure it covers pre-existing injuries, and make sure that, because sometimes they consider anything more than 3 to 6 months chronic, and sadly, because arthritis, because diabetes, because strokes is more of a chronic condition, they might not cover that. They'll cover the fall because of it, but they won't cover stroke. So those are things that you have to ask your insurance agent.
Exactly.
Let's do a program on that, Judy and Jim and Marcia, on insurances, and we'll invite some of the people that were on this show. But we're gonna get to the aphasia. We're gonna start with Stacy, but Steve, I want you to chime in about what you're doing. You're the only Steve, right? I just wanted to make sure. Steve Gutman, how are you today, Steve?
I'm great, Hannah. How are you?
Thank good. So I know you're in the in the preventative stages. You work on the preventative because you do exercise and really for the mind and the heart and the soul, and the body. So talk to us a little bit about that.
Sure. And also then I cover on the more the rehabilitative as well. So honored to be with this amazing group, this panel. This is really amazing. I wish my Yankees had themselves together like this. So I'm a mind, body, health, wellness, life coach, integrative trainer, massage, energy therapist. So I cover positivity training, stress management, background with meditation things. So I work with people really three-dimensionally with traditional training, yoga, and then Qigong, which Tai Chi and Kung Fu come from, Qigong being one of the 4 original forms of Chinese medicine. And then I've been providing massage and energy therapy, cupping therapy for years and years. And I've background phys ed, worked with people from 4 to 106. So it's really a wide variety of things. So on the preventive end, I'm working with people, first of all, nutritionally, and enough esteemed panelists had mentioned different areas of nutrition, vitamins, minerals, things that were important. I work with people on that end, can coach people on how they're eating. And then besides that, through exercise, moving, as of course, no one has to move a ton. As long as you're moving, doing something, I may train people in different ways to go very intensely, but it doesn't have to be. As long as a person is getting some resistance training, cardio, something for flexibility, yoga, Qigong, Tai Chi, some martial arts can be great in their ways. So I do provide that. And once again, massage. We look at all these things, as discussion has been so prominent in this whole panel, just discussion about prevention. I can really come from that way with people in many ways, working with people to lower the blood pressure. And as Renee, you had mentioned, and others, about coming from a place of thankfulness. How important is gratitude? So I'll talk to people about being thankful for where they're at. Things can always be worse. I dealt with COVID recently myself, which was not a picnic, but I was thankful that it was not as bad as it could have been. And we know, in terms of prevention, it is really this whole multifaceted approach, right? Nutrition, so big. Where is our mindset? How are we moving? Are we doing things in terms of relaxation? Are we doing things in terms of recovery? That's a very big element. All of this is what I do. I actually am the founder of International Health and Wellness Week, a worldwide event to help inspire, educate, and motivate people to find the modalities of fitness and wellness that work best for them. I ran it a few times. And of course, I was planning to the last few years, but something called COVID got in the way. I hope to get back to that another time. In terms of what I do in recovery with people, I have a background trained in something called Brain Gym, if anyone's familiar, technology created by Dr. Paul Dennison in the 80s to really enhance learning, comprehension, and communication. So I can work with people, as aphasia was mentioned. Of course, we look at the post effects, as many people here have dealt with a stroke. I've worked with people in many, many concerns, including those through the Brain Gym, something called Ageless Grace, which is a modality for mind and body. And then besides that, doing things in terms of massage, once again, energy therapy, the yoga, and I think even more, the Qigong are great. When we're talking about, whether they're talking about aphasia, whether we're talking about any elements of recovery from stroke, of course, anything else. And sometimes you're dealing, as we know, with other challenges as well. So I really love the fact that I can work with people.
We lost you, Steve. Steve, we lost you. We can't hear you.
With a lot of you, as I really strive to always create a bigger team I'm with, because I take great pride in my passion, my knowledge, my experience, but I know I'm just one part of the whole enchilada. There are many more elements to it.
Yeah. And like I said, this is only the beginning of the conversation. This is only bringing it to the forefront. And we hope to hear from everybody and support everybody in whatever they need. Cindy, let's go to you, because you wrote a book after the cheering stops, and Dr. Mike had brought up the NFL before, and your struggles with the brain injury, and your husband struggled from that, the football brain injury. And it's really important in the aphasia world, in the stroke world, not in the stroke world, in the brain injury world, to shed light on that.
Well, thank you so much for having me. And I just appreciate all the information that I'm learning from all of you. I'm all about raising awareness for something that Grant and I didn't even know anything about when he was alive. I was married to an NFL football player for 10 years, or for 29 years. I don't know why I said 10. He played in the NFL for 10 years. He played football actually from the age of 8 to 32. So little did we know that our entire marriage, while I thought something was going on but didn't know exactly what it was the effects of a traumatic brain injury. We didn't know. He died not knowing. I really didn't understand it until after his autopsy, that he had stage 3
You're breaking up,
CTE.
Cindy.
I'm sorry. Can you hear me now? He ended up dying from stage 3 CTE and addiction. So he was a drug addict and an alcoholic, which caused a huge...
Can everybody...
I'm sorry, guys. I live in a remote area. I've been hearing all of you, but I'm sorry you can't hear me well.
I hear
That's
you,
okay.
Cindy.
Just talk. That's okay.
Well, in other words, we had a very misunderstood life. So I decided, after I realized that his autopsy said he had stage 3 CTE, I thought he was just an addict. But now that I've learned more about traumatic brain injury, I understand that it was just a misunderstanding that I had with him.
Excuse me, Cindy?
Yes.
Move away from the screen. Okay.
There we go. So I wish I'd known more when he was alive. And I appreciate you guys having me on early on, right after I wrote my book, after the cheering stops. And it was real helpful to me to see. Thank you, Judy. It was real helpful for me just to be in your world. And I appreciate your friendships. But I just am constantly trying to raise awareness about what repetitive head injuries do. And it's preventable more than anything. What Grant died from was preventable.
Right. Well, your information is really really important in the world.
It was called CTE, wasn't it?
Yes. His diagnosis was stage 3 CTE. Now, we also know that CTE has the same symptoms similar to Alzheimer's, ALS, Parkinson's, and dementia. So just in the amount of time since Grant's been dead for almost 10 years now, we've learned that all of those things have a common thread. And all of them have similar symptoms.
Cindy, your husband had multiple concussions starting from an early
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
If you break an arm and you keep breaking it,
that's right.
It's get worse and worse. But
that's right.
Know that because they don't see the concussion.
No, they had we had no idea. He said at the end of his life that he had hundreds of concussions.
Wow, that's so sad, so sad. And
parents should be aware of that. Parents should be aware of that when their children are playing active sports where they're colliding with each other.
They know it, but
yes, ma'am. We now know that it's a big money maker, and I always say that money is more important in the United States than taking care of children's brains.
And somebody once told me, who's had many concussions, you don't make the club in the tub. So
that's right.
If you tell that you have problems and you can't play, then you're not going to be in the NFL.
That's right. Wow. And that's what he never complained. He played steadily. And where did it get him? He's dead. Died at 51.
Yeah.
And even Dr. Daniel Amen in America, psychiatrist, he's got the biggest database of brain scans in the world, or SPECT scans. And even he was saying that, we just as a society do not really care about the brain. We allow softballs to bounce off heads in soccer games, and, that it's a really fragile part of our body.
Yes, it's like an egg yolk. It's like an egg yolk. And we never learned that. We never knew that. Never did we have a trainer even talk to us about that. And surely they knew about the brain.
I just want to add that I think that dancers that shake their head and do all these acrobatic things and keep shaking and vibrating their head could get this kind of an injury.
Yes, ma'am.
I just want to say, I'm sorry to butt in, but if you sprain an ankle, it swells. If you get a concussion, your brain swells, but your brain has nowhere to go except against the wall of the skull. And when there, that's where the injury starts, because you lose function of the brain. That's pressed.
Yes. So I lived a life misunderstood with my poor husband, who had no idea his whole lifetime what he had, and just tried to cover it up with drugs and alcohol. Now I get it, but it was too late.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's important information, and we're grateful that you're here to share your story once again. And we'll have you on the show again, and we'll continue to talk about it, because it really is keeping the conversation alive. It's keeping the conversation alive.
Thank you so much.
Oh, you're welcome. Rob, I'm sorry we're you've been hanging on there for a while, but you actually wrote a book that Judy's holding on, My Fight for Recovery. And you suffered a brain injury as well. So feed into that and how you're doing, and you're changing the world in talking about it and bringing it to the forefront, like so many of these panelists.
Well, my book is about my recovery from a brain hemorrhage during brain surgery when I was 17. It caused the equivalent of a major stroke and left me with right-sided paralysis, unable to speak, write, read, and understand what people said. It caused severe damage to my short-term memory and made me dependent on anti-seizure medicines. But my recovery shows how some survivors of severe brain injuries can have a productive life if they work hard at their physical, speech, cognitive, and emotional therapies.
Wow.
Right. So what you're doing now?
Well, my job is a communication analysis at the Illinois House of Representatives. So I'm in politics.
Right, you're making a change. You're making a difference. You're where we want to move to. We want to, because actually the government plays a big impact in our recovery in our stroke insurance world, which is crazy. So that's where we have to listen and we have to follow. And that's what Andrew was talking about. Like, if you want to make a change, you have to contact your assemblyman, your local assemblyman, and really get on them to make a change. I'm so grateful for all of you. And this conversation will continue. I just asked Jim, can you just show Jan's video? Our acupuncturist, Jan, she was scheduled to be on the show. She couldn't be on the show last minute, but she had a video that we had worked on a while ago. And I want Jim to show it before we close out. And
Renee, we also have Stacy and Charlotte, and I have a 1-second comment I want to make.
Stacy actually isn't on the show. She left. She must have left. And Craig probably had to hop off too. So if you could reach out to Craig, just apologize and give him a whole show to do. Apologize to him. I just want to make sure we're respecting everybody's time and just their voices on this conversation. But if you could just let Jim, can you show the video?
Showing it right now.
Okay, we'll just listen to this video.
Hi everyone, this is Yen Zhang. I'm a New York licensed acupuncturist, and I am the owner of Acupuncture by Yen PC. Many people have asked this question: can acupuncture really benefit stroke patients? Our answer is a definite yes. Acupuncture therapy for stroke-caused conditions such as paralysis, speech and swallowing problems, and depression is commonly used in Asia. Like in China and Japan, an acupuncturist is likely to start therapy as soon as possible after a stroke. Our own experience with stroke patients over the years demonstrates that when applied correctly, acupuncture can shorten recovery time to as little as 2 weeks and restore function to over 95% in some patients. How can we make acupuncture maximally beneficial for stroke patients? First, time is crucial. Acupuncture should intervene properly as early as the first hour after onset. Acupuncture has exceptional value in the first 3 to 72 hours. Every hour of delay can potentially harm the outcome. The best treatment window is the first 6 months. The sooner, the better. Second, choose the right acupuncture style. According to my personal experience, I strongly recommend scalp needle technique. Often, people are amazed at the outcome. For neurological conditions, such as strokes, scalp acupuncture is by far the most effective. Third, the frequency and duration of acupuncture treatments must be adequate, especially in the first 3 months. I would suggest at least 2 times per week. Here are 4 ways acupuncture can help stroke recovery. First, hemiplegia and hemiparesis. Second, sensory deficits like numbness, tingling, hypersensitivity, and in some cases can have loss of recognition of their own limbs. Third, speech and swallowing issues. Fourth, depression. If you'd like to have more information, please contact me at 347-925-6995 or email me at yyAcupuncture@yahoo.com. Our website is acupuncturebyyen.com. Thank you, everyone.
Okay.
Renee?
That's it.
I just would like to make a statement as an advocate.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, as an advocate caregiver, the responsibilities that I had was checking frequently on my dad, who was living alone and was older, and my mom had passed, so I had taken care of both of them, but now I was paying more attention to my dad since he was living alone. And he had a sudden stroke. I called the ambulance, and as an advocate caregiver, I also realized that he didn't have a healthcare proxy. And I told him so many times about it. I told both my parents about it. It's very important because with a healthcare proxy, you can make healthcare decisions. If you don't have a healthcare proxy, the doctors, the hospitals, they're going to make, the judges, they're going to make the decisions on your loved one's care. I also got a durable power of attorney so I can make financial decisions for my dad. You have to act quickly. The tests that I said, are we going to do it right away, or the MRI, the MRA, and the CAT scans. You've got to get the diagnosis. In my dad's case, it was a hemorrhagic stroke and required an operation and a feeding tube. I continued visiting frequently, got to know the doctors and nurses, very important, to know the doctors and nurses that are in charge. I continued visiting. I had to locate a nursing home, the one that I felt was best to meet my dad's needs. I also needed it to be close to where I was so I could be there. I was there 6 hours a day for 3 years and 3 months.
Wow.
I had to check my dad's assets, his insurance, his health care, and his long-term care. I talked to my dad in a very positive way. It's very important that you talk to a stroke or brain injury person in the most positive way you can, to be a caring companion and always making sure they're comfortable and all their needs are met.
Wow. Thank you, Judy. That's empowering stuff and really a good way to almost close the show. Thank you so much. Thank you for everything, Judy. I can't thank you enough for being who you are. We're going to close out in 2 minutes, but I want to give everybody that's still on the show the last words. So, Nicole, do you have a pinpoint thing that you want to say to everybody?
Yeah, look, if you are working with anyone who's having memory issues, please download the Rethink, RETIINK. It's a combination of Rethink and Retinker to modify and improve your memory. It's free on the Apple App Store and Google Play. And my book, Holding On to Hope, Finding the New You After a Traumatic Brain Injury, lots of really positive, strategic tools, resources, and strategies for people to improve their lives.
Wow, thank you, Nicole. And we're going to put everyone's information and books and work on our website. We're going to have a page on our website with everybody's information. So just know that we're working on it. We just came up with a new website. So that's the next piece of my thought. Barbara, do you have any pinpoint moments that, pinpoint advice or words of wisdom for everybody?
I don't think that it could fit on a pinpoint.
I know.
I think having everybody's information is what I was hoping you would do. So I'm going to be looking for that. And
yeah.
I want to thank you and Judy both. Wonderful job. And I learned a lot, which is wonderful to know that after all these years, I'm still able to learn. So Thank you very much. And it was very enjoyable.
You're quite welcome.
And we couldn't do without all of you. It takes us all to do our work and really to support each other. So that's why we want to put it on the website. Dina, do you have any information, any words of wisdom for our audience? You're on mute. You're on mute. And we did hear you. And by the way, what you said resonated with us before. So I just want to make sure about the insurances and how it's not, we're all working to strive to change that. We're all working to strive to change that. So know that what you said, it did resonate with us. It did resonate with us. So what would you like to share with everybody? What's on the top of, what's in your heart right now?
Keep moving on.
What?
She froze. Keep moving on.
Keep moving on.
What?
Keep moving on.
That's right.
She's okay. We were just
on.
It's okay. It's okay. We just asked her. We told her we heard. Go ahead. We asked Dina to share what was in her heart right now, and the other thing was we just confirmed that we did hear what resonated with us before about the insurance. So she got emotional.
And
everybody.
Physical therapist.
Take your time. Take your time.
The physical therapist at the gym.
Yeah, typically the trainers at the gyms, they're specialized in training you either for aerobics or weightlifting. We actually got very lucky that our trainer happened to, have a physical therapy background, but the gyms are very accessible to people, and instead of paying $400 or $500 a month for out-of-pocket expenses to therapies, you can go to the gym for $50 or $60, utilize their trainers. their trainers are a couple of dollars too, but it's nothing near the expense out of pocket.
And you get that time just for you.
Yes, yes. One thing we did notice on physical therapy too, and not Venice's place, she's very good, but we were in another system in the beginning, and they really have to have a lot of people in there to keep the doors open. And what happens is the physical therapist gets spread thin, and you don't get that one-on-one that you really do need in certain cases.
Yeah.
They give you the workout and they send you off by yourself, and I'm going to therapy and I'm not getting to work with anybody.
Yeah. Yeah. So Judy, if you could set up a show, we could talk a little bit more about it, just so we can start the conversation, keep the conversation alive. Is that okay with you guys?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Perfect. You're very welcome. Steve, your words of wisdom, your final words of wisdom?
Which, oh, Steve, mine?
No, Steve, yes. You're the only Steve on right now. Sorry.
Well, the one thing I'll also say is one thing I can always do with people. I go to people, they can come to me. I also do virtual. So I can always work with people virtually on different aspects of everything for recovery. I'd say, if anything, my late mom, who I lost going on 7 years ago to pancreatic cancer, when she was passing, she still had all this amazing positive attitude. My favorite saying from her was, and now I'm going blank on it, I cried because I had no shoes till I met a man who had no feet. So what I look at, no matter what, one part of wellness, we have to count our blessings. We have to look at whatever is going on, all of us, because things can always be worse.
Yeah.
If we're around, we're around. So be thankful. Gratitude, appreciation, it's part of health, taking care of yourself.
Yeah, I agree. But I also understand where Dina's at, because I was very emotional about I just didn't know. I didn't know what was in front of me, and so I needed people to hold my hand. And you're so blessed, Dina, to have Eddie with you. You're so blessed to have a partner that really is supporting you and loving you. And a book I'm working on is Love Them Through It, because that really is the basis to every single recovery, is you need to have people love you through it. You need to have people love you through it. So Venice, thank you so much. You're a gift. And
thank you.
Go ahead.
Thank you. Like you said, insurance is the culprit. We're getting reimbursed now what I used to get reimbursed 20 years ago. So this is the issue. You know, they used to give 6 months of therapy in rehab centers, 6 hours a day, 40 years ago. Now they give you 6 to 8 weeks, 3 hours a day. And it's a crime. You know, part of it is supply and demand. They have more therapists, so they figure, we'll lower the reimbursement. But keep advocating for yourselves and for the therapies. And unfortunately, New York is one of the lowest reimbursable states in the country. When I talk to therapists that are doing marketing, they say, "Oh, you're from New York. Yeah, we know how bad it is there." So it's well known. And as far as vitamin D, chiming in, 75% of Americans are deficient. So every one of us should be taking vitamin D.
And you know what I think what's coming to my mind as you're speaking is, people wait for something to happen to them to really become an advocate for them, where you should be an advocate for ongoing support of insurance or recovery through any illness. In any illness, you should get the proper recovery that you need. You don't wait until you experience a stroke or you experience aphasia, you experience a brain injury to really become an advocate for it. just always, they should do the right thing, because you get in this scramble where you're in the need and you're frustrated. And the other thing is, you have family members you have to worry about at that particular time. So it's really not the time to advocate for it. So you have to advocate for it while you're still healthy, and you could prepare in your life for things. That's really what's come to my mind, but thank you, Venice, for all you do. You are incredible. Cindy, talk to us, give us a little bit of inspiration before we go.
Again, thank you all. I've learned so much. I've just been sitting here writing notes. So thank you so much for all the inspiration that you've given me, and you for just continuing on, and Judy for helping you. And I just ask all parents to just seriously consider what you put your children in as far as sports goes. I mean, it's very important that people start realizing at an early age that you have to protect your brain. It's very important. And so I just am always pleading to parents. I know it's America's entertainment and pastime, but if it causes a lifetime of pain for someone else and an early death, that it's certainly not worth it.
Yeah. And you, Cindy. And you would wonder, because it's so on the forefront of the news now, the injury. It's not even hidden anymore. So you wonder why people still continue to play football. I don't know. From what I understand, like they redid the helmets or something. I don't know.
Not enough.
Not enough.
Protect your brain.
It's never going to happen to me, syndrome.
Do they protect your brain? Venice, and people. I'm sorry, Cindy. Venice,
well, people are interested in money. It's money. It's hard to fight power and money.
But I have a question for Venice, because I think she would be the one to ask. Those helmets that they fixed, are they? Do they really help?
No,
they help, but they're not 100%. And you're just talking about football. We now, as there's a lot of soccer players. They love to head the ball. Female lacrosse players don't wear helmets, where the males do. There's so many other sports that you don't even realize. I have a cheerleader that keeps on hitting her head every time.
And dancers.
So, there's a lot, and we talk about NFL because that's in the forefront, and because the NFL spent a lot of money, over $3 million on a study. But when you look at all the other sports, concussions, and I've done a lot of research and taken a lot of courses on concussions, they're in all sports. So,
Wow. It's very interesting. We should have another conversation on that. Marcia and Jim, give us your words of wisdom. What's in your heart to really share with everybody?
I think it's important to remember to look at alternate types of medicine. For example, neurofeedback or laser therapy or whatever, because you never know what there is out there already that will help you.
That was what I wanted you to talk about, was that therapy.
Sorry.
That's okay. No, it just came to me. It just came. So we're going to do a whole show on that anyway. We're going to do a whole show, because that's really important stuff that you had shared. Jim, do you have anything on your heart that you want to share with everybody?
I think I'm good. It's been a great show.
Yeah. Sorry to keep everybody longer, but I wanted to make sure I heard everybody's voices. And Rob, what do you have to say? What's your words of wisdom? What's on your heart to share with everybody before we go?
Don't give up on your recovery.
Great. That's a great segue and to end the show. Jim, can you come on the screen? I want to thank you. Is he coming on? Jim? Maybe I'm.
Renee, I don't actually know why I'm not on the screen. I can't figure out.
That's okay, but I really wanted to thank you for letting us go over today.
No problem.
I wanted to make sure I had everybody's input, and I want to thank everybody once again for the incredible information we've had today. And like I said, this is only the beginning of the conversation. We're going to keep it alive, and we'll support anybody and anything you need us to do. Just let us know. We're part of a team, and together what's the verbiage? Together we are lifting our voices and changing the face of stroke and aphasia locally and around the globe. So thank you so much to everybody. Let's clap for each other. Thank you so much. It was awesome. And we always blow our kisses. And I want to thank everybody for joining us today. We're so blessed. We're so blessed. I don't need to speak too much because everybody said incredible information today. So we're just going to leave it at that we're going to keep the conversation alive. On 3, let's blow our kisses. 1. Oh, wait, Judy, did you give your last words of wisdom?
No, do you want me to?
Yes.
Okay.
You're one of the most important people on the show. Go ahead.
Well, in summary, it's important to have somebody in your life that could be an advocate for you and be a caregiver for you. And it's important to have a healthcare proxy in advance so that that person can make healthcare decisions for you, not judges or doctors. And it's important to have a durable power of attorney so that the person that you trust can make financial decisions for you. And as Nicole said, hold on to hope. And as Nate used to say, and still does, never give up and always, always think positive and surround yourself with positive thinking people. God bless you all.
You ended the show perfectly. Let's blow our kisses on 3. 1, 2, 3. Bye, everybody. Thank you so much. Bye. What a blessing. What a blessing. Naughty night. She's going to sleep. Maybe you could play the video again.
Yo no sé qué tú piensas. Yo no sé lo que haré. Yo no sé lo que estoy perdiendo.